Introduction. I bet if you were asked 2 decades ago, what are the factors that determine a person's overall success in life, you would say a high intelligence quotient, good grades, and well-developed cognitive functions. It was natural to assume that the ones with high intelligence in general had higher chances of being successful. Parents and educators sang the same tune of high intelligence translating into greater success. Wish it was actually that simple. If you want to be successful in life, study hard, get awesome grades, go to college, study harder, and graduate with really high honors. This was believed to be the sure-shot highway to a great job and an abundantly successful life. You spent years believing this notion, and though it's not completely incorrect, it's not the full picture too. Success is a combination of several factors, the fundamental of them being your ability to handle your and other people's emotions. Enter emotional intelligence or emotional quotient. Both represent the same idea, which is a type of intelligence that determines an individual's ability to recognize and manage/control their and other people's emotions. It is a simple and straightforward concept that comprises 2 main components. First, identifying and recognizing emotions, intentions, desires, and goals in yourself and other people. Second, managing these emotions and actions to accomplish the most positive outcome for everyone involved. Research on emotional intelligence has been going on since mid-20th century with the psychoscientific community. However, it wasn't until 1995, when Daniel Goleman published his book by the same name, that emotional intelligence rolled into the mainstream consciousness and became a path-breaking concept. Until then, intelligence quotient was seen as clinching factor. Once emotional intelligence took over, IQ was looked upon as a narrow or limited way of assessing an individual's chances of success. The cutthroat world of career, jobs, and business was seen as starkly different from the cushy confines of a classroom. If one had to navigate the real world, they'd have to adapt to a different kind of intelligence than the academic one used in classrooms or libraries. A person's knowledge and cognitive abilities alone didn't guarantee success in life. A degree wasn't automatically going to convert into a high-paying job or a profitable business. At best, you'll get your foot into the door. However, to sustain a person will need much more than plain intelligence. It will take social, communication, conversation, and emotional skills to raise the bar. These are real-life skills that don't come in the classroom, but are learnt by living in a hostel, waiting at bars, joining social clubs, becoming part of a sports team, and volunteering. You still think IQ is the only factor that determines a person's overall success in life? If that was true, my friend, every successful person you spot today, from the CEO of a big organizations, to the president, to thought leaders, to successful entrepreneurs, should be a Harvard, Stanford, MIT PhD. Are they? Make a list of 10 successful people you admire the most. They're the ones you look up to and think of as leading successful and balanced lives. Are all these folks top honors graduates from distinguished educational institutions with a high IQ? My money is on no. Again, don't get me wrong here. I am not undermining the importance of intelligence or asking you to shut that book on mechanical engineering and start reading about human psychology. It is awesome if you possess naturally high cognitive abilities and a high intelligence quotient. All I'm saying is, you really should have both EQ and IQ complementing each other to increase your chances of success in the real world. If you can increase your emotional quotient to back an already high intelligence quotient, you can create miracles. However, if you ask me to pick between 2 skills, I would put my money on emotional intelligence. A person with average intelligence and highly evolved emotional intelligence has a greater chance of succeeding in today's world than a person with high intelligence and less developed emotional intelligence. The name of the game today is about managing people, understanding their emotions and motives, and managing their feelings to achieve the most positive results. Technical knowledge may help you direct or instruct your team when it comes to demonstrating a task. However, your ability to keep them motivated by understanding their emotions will ensure if they stay inspired and productive throughout the process. A person's cognitive intelligence or intellectual potential has always been measured by his or her ability to retain facts or make calculations. However, these skills aren't necessarily all-encompassing in certain positions such as leadership and entrepreneurship. Tons of CEOs, world leaders, and Fortune 500 company founders are high school dropouts. If intelligence alone was the measure of a person's success, how would you explain this? The reality is that it isn't as straightforward as a single factor like intelligence determining our success. It is, in fact, a combination of factors, predominantly emotional and social life skills that will help him or her survive or thrive in the real world. Intelligence quotient is an inborn but not all-inclusive factor influencing an individual's overall life success. This is good news because irrespective of your traditional genetically determined intelligence, you have a good chance of success if you work upon other social emotional life skills. A high emotional quotient, along with other social and psychological skill sets, can boost your chances of success. The objective of this book is to discuss crucial aspects of emotional intelligence and how to adopt them in your everyday life to increase your chances of success. We'll take a look at practical techniques to raise your emotional quotient and eventually boost your chances of success. Chapter 1. Emotional Intelligence Explained. The term emotional intelligence, and its more informal abbreviation EQ, has gained some sort of cult ubiquitous following in the self-development genre. Everyone from students to corporate professionals to government service personnel are waking up to the importance of boosting their emotional quotient or gaining greater awareness of their and others' emotions. Heck, even comic strips such as Dilbert feature the concept of emotional intelligence. Have you ever seen one of those kid toy boxes that talk about how playing with XYZ toy can boost your child's emotional intelligence? Or those personal ads that wax eloquent about how their prospective partner should be emotionally intelligent? There are quips printed on toiletry bottles, too, about emotional intelligence. So basically, it has become all-prevailing and tough to escape. What exactly is emotional intelligence, then? And why has it spread so rapidly into the mainstream culture? The term emotional intelligence was first coined by two researchers, Peter Salovey and John Mayer. However, it gained popularity only post the 1996 bestseller of the same name, authored by renowned psychologist Dan Goleman. Emotional intelligence fundamentally comprises of identifying, understanding, and effectively managing your own emotions, while also being able to recognize, comprehend, deal with, and influence the emotions of other people for forging more harmonious relationships. The concept of emotional intelligence has become so widespread that it has found a place in languages as diverse as Chinese, Malay, German, and Portuguese. What's more, even religious scholars across the world have woke up to the concept of emotional intelligence and interweaved it into their faith. How does emotional intelligence work in practical terms? Being aware of our emotions gives us the power to manage our behavior and influence people positively. Learning to manage the behavior of other people can impact our relationships more positively. Today, some companies and corporate professionals accord emotional intelligence even more important than traditional intelligence because it is considered an invaluable workplace asset. Many recruitment firms make emotional intelligence their clinching factor while deciding upon the successful candidate. How do you pick between people who possess similar educational qualifications, skills, work experience, and proficiency? All qualified candidates possess the knowledge and skills required for a job. What is it that differentiates you from 100 other folks who've got the same set of skills, educational background, and experience as you? Are you able to connect with people? Are you able to understand their emotions and work your way through it to get the best out of them? Are you able to manage your own expectations to optimize productivity? All things being equal, people with high emotional intelligence are almost always preferred over those that struggle with their and others' emotions. Let us acquire a detailed overview of what emotional intelligence encompasses. Here are some major categories of emotional intelligence. Self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to identify or label an emotion as it occurs in your mind. This is the cornerstone of emotional intelligence. You should be able to recognize your emotions to be able to manage them more effectively. If you fail to recognize that you are experiencing jealousy towards someone else, how will you deal with it? Tuning into your real feelings is at the base of emotional intelligence. Once you are able to identify your emotions and their consequences, it becomes easier to manage the effects of those emotions. This invariably boosts your confidence and makes you more self-assured about your abilities. Self-awareness gives you a heightened sense of self-worth, self-confidence, and self-esteem. Self-regulation. We don't have much control over how we experience and process emotions. However, the mind can be trained to control how long the impact of an emotion stays with you through a series of techniques. This simply gives you greater power to beat destructive emotions such as anxiety, depression, fear, anger, and insecurity. Self-regulation can help manage disruptive impulses. It can also boost trustworthiness in relationships, helping you maintain higher standards of integrity, trust, and honesty. It will help you develop a higher sense of conscientiousness or taking responsibilities for your actions and results. By learning to self-regulate emotions, we develop adaptability, flexibility, and the ability to handle change more efficiently. It also paves the way for greater innovation and the ability to be accepting of new ideas. Motivation. Motivating yourself and others becomes a way of life when you sport a more positive and emotionally balanced attitude. Although most people function with a predominantly negative or positive attitude, they can be trained to develop a more positive mindset with practice and dedication. When you develop the ability of catching negative thoughts as they strike, you are able to quickly mold them into more positive, constructive thoughts, which can help accomplish your goals. Emotional intelligence can help boost your achievement drive, your sense of commitment, the ability to take initiative and optimism. When you're emotionally intelligent, you are ready to act efficiently upon the given opportunities. You are also more equipped to fulfill goals despite obstacles, challenges, and setbacks. Empathy. The ability to identify people's emotions is critical to success in both your personal and professional life. The more perceptive and discerning you are towards others' feelings, the better you can manage your behavior towards them. A person high on empathy excels at preempting, recognizing, and meeting the needs of others, such a valuable asset when it comes to pleasing clients in corporate setups. Developing others' abilities, leveraging diversity to create more opportunities, raising political awareness, understanding the emotional dynamics and power relationships of different groups, and developing a high understanding of the desires and needs of others to motivate them more efficiently. Social skills. Evolved interpersonal skills are the mainstay of a person's social, personal, and business well-being. In today's hyper-connected world, everyone has equal access to knowledge and technical resources. If you're a programmer, what differentiates you from thousands of other programmers who know coding at the back of their hand? If you're an experienced surgeon, what distinguishes you from other nifty surgeons who have performed thousands of surgeries? When everyone possesses equal technical know-how, the only thing that differentiates one professional from another is his or her ability to connect with people. Thus, people skills are given as much value today as technical expertise. A surgeon's ability to understand and empathize with his patient is today as important as his ability to perform skilled surgeries. People with a high emotional quotient are known to understand, lead, empathize, motivate, and negotiate better with others in a fast-paced global economic environment. Social tactics such as influencing others, wielding the power of persuasion, negotiating, communicating effectively, leading, being a change catalyst, managing conflict, building bonds, collaborating and cooperating, teamwork, and more are easier to practice when you have a well-developed, nurtured emotional quotient. Psychologists have agreed that only 10% of our success can be attributed to intelligence, not more than 25% at the most. The rest depends on several factors, including the vital emotional intelligence. A revealing study conducted on Harvard graduates in several fields spanning medicine, law, teaching, etc., demonstrated a zero and even negative correlation between success in the entrance test scores and success in their career. This clearly reveals that intelligence alone is clearly inefficient without emotional competencies, and that to experience holistic success in life, we must be equipped to deal with our and other people's emotions. The psychology of attachment states that all our current emotional experiences can be traced back to our early trysts with emotions. Your present-day ability to cope with emotions, such as unhappiness, fear, anger, and happiness, are inextricably linked to the nature of your early emotional experiences. If your emotions were acknowledged and valued in early stages, they can become invaluable life assets. Similarly, if the experiences were more painful and scary, you will most likely detach yourself from those emotions. Emotional intelligence helps you connect with your emotions and identify changing feelings the moment they occur. This is critical to managing your thoughts and actions. Understanding our emotions is key to managing them. This leads us to think logically about an emotion before acting upon it. We are no longer slaves of our impulses and wield greater control on our actions on account of being more aware of our emotions. This prevents us from taking irrational and destructive steps that we end up regretting in hindsight. You also learn the fine art of putting yourself in others' shoes by developing greater empathy. This can be a huge asset in your personal and business life. For instance, if an employee is not putting in his best, an emotionally intelligent person won't automatically assume he or she is being lazy or disinterested in working. On the contrary, they will reach out to the person and examine his reasons for performing below his abilities. He may simply be afraid of making mistakes, or he may be low on self-confidence about his or her abilities. Problem resolution becomes much easier when you are able to put yourself in someone else's shoes and feel things from their perspective. Two people returned home post-work after having a huge fight with their manager. Let's call them Person A and Person B. Person A wasn't very emotionally intelligent. On returning home, he found his children playing noisily. His immediate reaction was to shout at the top of his voice and ask the children to shut up. He acted purely on his emotions, which were misdirected from his manager to his children, who had nothing to do with him being upset. Person A didn't stop and think before acting on his emotions. Therefore, when Person B got home and discovered his children were playing noisily, he stepped back mentally and controlled his urge to scream by rationalizing that the children had nothing at all to do with the way he felt. Why then should they bear the brunt of his feelings? They weren't responsible for his emotions. Therefore, why make them face the consequences by yelling at them? The children always made a loud noise while playing. What's the point of gunning for them today just because I'm upset with my manager? Person B recognized that the main cause of him being in a foul mood was his boss, and therefore was able to act upon his emotions in a less impulsive and more rational manner. He displayed exemplary emotional intelligence. Let's consider another example to strengthen your understanding of emotional intelligence. Say you've been assigned an extremely prestigious project. Your manager is putting you under a lot of pressure to do it really well. You are aware that there are plenty of coworkers who'd be ready to take over the project from you without batting an eyelid. How does a person deal with such a stressful situation? There are two main options when it comes to reacting to such a situation. You can buckle under the pressure of losing a vital project, because human beings are essentially wired for reacting on emotions first without thinking their decisions through. Alternatively, a person with high emotional intelligence can use this stress as a motivator to perform above expectations and use the opportunity to come out tops in the eyes of the management. The emotionally intelligent person may feel slightly overwhelmed initially. However, he or she will quickly gather themselves and get to work by finding their inner bearings. Not only are such folks able to balance themselves more efficiently, but they can also utilize stress as fantastic motivation means. How do people react when they are offered feedback, even of the more positive and constructive kind? People with low emotional intelligence will come up with a bundle of excuses to hide their shortcomings or short of expectations performance. They may shy away from acknowledging their mistakes or make someone else the scapegoat for their inefficiency. They will take the shorter route of snapping by giving in to their emotions rather than taking the time to think it through. It's easier to simply give in to your emotions, but recognizing and controlling them takes effort. On the other hand, a person with higher emotional intelligence will accept that they aren't perfect. Instead of taking the feedback personally, they'll delve deeper into themselves to work out what went wrong and avoid making the same mistakes in the future. They will listen intently and focus on the developing of themselves rather than worrying about being right all the time. Emotionally intelligent folks are less likely to argue, retort, or throw accusations. They will be more open to suggestions and constructive feedback, which will help them reach their goals. They will listen and absorb the information and work on it. For them, it's more about developing themselves than being right or wrong. They will even thank the person for giving feedback for his or her inputs. Let's consider another example of emotional intelligence. You are engaged in a discussion about politics with a friend. You are expressing your personal political views and beliefs, while he or she is vocalizing his or her ideas. You sense a more angry tone when they talk about their beliefs. Since you are clued into their emotions, you realize that the topic is slightly sensitive and may upset them. You quickly take a grip of the situation and gently acknowledge their view, even if you do not agree with it. Since you were more sensitive and thoughtful to your classmates' feelings through nonverbal clues and physical reactions, you were able to diffuse a potentially volatile situation respectfully, thus ending things on a more positive note. Imagine a scenario where you weren't emotionally intelligent or thoughtful toward the other person's emotions. You'd have simply stuck to a view that would have fanned their flaming emotions even more, thus snowballing into a situation where everyone ends up hurt and upset, and the situation ends negatively, thus impacting your interpersonal relationship. Almost all of us know an emotionally intelligent person. If you're lucky, maybe more than one. He or she seems to be saying the right things, however tricky the situation. They have a way of handling the situation and preventing it from becoming negative or destructive. They know how to assert themselves without offending others. These folks are also more caring, sensitive, considerate, compassionate, and empathetic. They don't allow emotions to swing their behavior. Emotionally intelligent people may not have the answers to all your problems, but they have the ability to make you feel more positive and hopeful about a situation. According to research conducted by Dr. Travis Bradbury, 90% of top-performing personnel in any organization have a high emotional quotient. 58% of your job performance is the result of emotional intelligence, and that people with high emotional intelligence make $29,000 more annually than their low emotionally intelligent professional counterparts. Those people with high emotional quotient not only perform well, but can also earn more on average than those with low emotional quotient. What's the difference between IQ and EQ? Intelligent quotient and emotional quotient both determine intelligence, albeit different types of intelligence. While IQ is a measure of a person's cognitive abilities, EQ measures his or her emotional intelligence. All the technical skills you've studied and practically learnt contribute toward your intelligence quotient. They make you technically competent and determine your success when it comes to performing the actual job. However, in today's dynamic and socially charged world, intelligence alone does not determine one's success. You must also learn the art of managing your own and others' emotions to be able to develop optimally productive and fulfilling relationships. Unless you live in a cardboard box all by yourself, emotional intelligence is a necessity to be able to deal with people around you. Imagine being in charge of one of the most prestigious projects your organization could bag. You've been given an extremely talented, skilled, and experienced team to helm the project. However, the project involved hours and hours of additional work, lots of back-breaking research, and sometimes working on weekends too. As someone who is proficient in his or her task, you're capable of leading from the front. However, since it's such a high-pressure and stressful project, are you able to persuade your team to put in extra effort and stay motivated throughout the project? Your technical prowess will help them gain the right skills. However, it is your emotional intelligence quotient which will help you keep your team inspired, positive, efficient, and productive. The way you deal with your and their emotions will determine to a large extent how they perform under a high-pressure situation. While your technical skills are a direct result of your intelligence and ability, your ability to manage the team's behavior is influenced by your emotional quotient. By gaining a more evolved understanding of your team's feelings, passions, motivators, and behavior, you can manage their actions for optimum productivity. It is easier to get people to do what you want them to, in a good way, unlike negative manipulation, when you gain insights into their emotional behavior. What is it that drives them? Some people react better to heaps of appreciation than monetary incentives, while others dig being applauded publicly. What leads people to behave the way they do? If a particular worker is always drawing attention to him or herself, he or she may be suffering from low self-esteem issues. When you understand the underlying emotions behind their behavior pattern, it becomes easier to manage their actions. This is the basic difference between emotional quotient and intelligence quotient. Notice how wonderfully politicians, leaders, advertisers, and other mass communicators use the power of emotional intelligence to create popular opinion, or how they influence and persuade the masses to make decisions to their advantage. Brands and advertising agencies are forever harnessing the power of emotions, such as fear, happiness, and aspirations to impact the buying behavior of their target audience. They use the emotional behavior of their target audience to their advantage by creating clever promotional messages that quickly urge people to take action. Emotional quotient, unlike intelligence quotient, dips into the most basic emotions that influence our actions or behavior pattern. While your IQ stays more or less the same at 15 and 65, EQ is more dynamic. It can be cultivated with a little training, practice, and experience. Emotional intelligence is more flexible and evolving. Individuals having a high IQ are awesome at completing cognitive tasks. They are capable of learning and absorbing skills and information rather quickly. However, if the same high IQ people have a low emotional quotient, they will find it challenging to recognize their and other people's feelings, thus being unable to manage these emotions efficiently. If things don't turn out according to their expectations, these individuals are prone to anger fits or lashing out at others without considering their feelings. They don't get along well with people and generally struggle with social adaptability. Emotional intelligence has acquired a huge momentum in the last couple of decades and has permeated into several areas including sports, government agencies, and the corporate world. A majority of conflicts in personal relationships are a direct result of low emotional intelligence, or the ability to connect with the other person's internal feelings. Brief history of emotional intelligence. The ground or brief foundation for the concept of emotional quotient or intelligence was first laid in 1983 by Harvard professor and psychologist Howard Gardner in his Theory of Multiple Intelligences. The paper spoke about different kinds of intelligences that impact our lives. It put forth the theory of interpersonal intelligence as one's ability to recognize motivations, desires, intentions, and needs of other people. The study also spoke about intrapersonal intelligence, which reflected an individual's ability to identify his or her deepest emotions, triggers, fears, and motivations. The study set the ball rolling for what's now become a huge psychological concept connected to helping people gain a better understanding of their and other people's emotions. Emotional intelligence, as a term, was originally coined by researchers, professors John D. Meyer and Peter Salovey in the early 90s. They referred to it as a kind of social intelligence, which awards people the knack for recognizing their and other people's emotions, which in turn is effective in guiding their actions. Though it was this duo that first coined the term and introduced the concept, it was Daniel Goleman who made the concept of emotional intelligence a rage with his 1990 book, Emotional Intelligence. Goleman was a journalist who specialized in writing about behavior sciences and popular psychology for publications such as the New York Times. He worked closely with several behavioral specialists, such as David McClelland. McClelland, along with a group of other research colleagues, was looking for alternatives for standard IQ tests, given the fact that these tests didn't reveal much about the qualities that are needed to be successful in life. While looking around for studies for his publication on emotions, Goleman came across Salovey and Meyer's study. He then went ahead and sought permission from these experts for utilizing the term emotional intelligence in the book he was authoring. Originally, the publication was supposed to be a discussion along the lines of emotional literacy. The focus quickly changed to emotional intelligence as a result of Salovey-Meyer's study. Goleman staunchly believed that cognitive intelligence alone contributed little to a person's overall success. He underlined the relevance of emotional intelligence that gave people the ability to understand their emotions, managing their emotions, identifying others' emotions, and handling them effectively by displaying high social skills. Goleman's book endorsed the concept of emotional intelligence as even more important than IQ to determine our success in life. The idea of EQ became so revolutionary that Goleman's book ended up selling a staggering 5 million copies within half a decade. The world welcomed emotional quotient with open arms and lapped it up for living more gratifying and fulfilled lives. Though the book discussed the concept of emotional intelligence in depth, it offered little in terms of helping readers increase their emotional quotient. How can emotional intelligence affect your daily life? 1. Emotional intelligence helps you negotiate the social complexities in your school, university, and workplace. It not just helps in leading and motivating others, but also gives you the right disposition to excel at work. Like we discussed earlier, several recruitment firms now conduct emotional intelligence tests for gauging a person's emotional and social adaptability before hiring. Emotional intelligence can help you do your best in school and work. 2. Your physical health is more or less a result of your inability to cope with stress. High stress can lead to health issues such as an inefficient immune system, high blood pressure, increased risk of heart ailments, infertility, and faster aging. One of the biggest consequences of boosting your emotional intelligence is decrease in stress. When you are able to identify your and other people's emotions more effectively, it leads to less stressful situations. Conflict management and differences are easy to resolve. You are better adjusted and adapted to the person around you, which leads to fewer opportunities for stressful situations. This is easy to understand. When we are emotionally happy and well-adjusted, it shows on our body. People with a high emotional quotient are capable of managing their emotions better to cope with issues such as anxiety and stress more positively. They don't stress over what is beyond their circle of influence, but instead control what they can. This leads to emotionally intelligent folks sporting better physical health and overall well-being. 3. Negative emotions, when not controlled at the right time, can snowball into mental health issues such as anxiety, panic attacks, and depression. When you struggle with the ability to manage your and other people's emotions, you are more vulnerable to feeling isolated, depressed, and lonely. Emotional intelligence allows you to develop a greater understanding towards people and situations, thus leading to lower stress and better mental health. 4. When you understand your emotions and learn how to manage them, you can express yourself even more effectively. Similarly, when you understand the feelings of others, it is easier to reach out to them in a constructive and positive manner. This helps you communicate efficiently with people to build stronger and more meaningful relationships. Let's take an example to understand how emotional intelligence impacts our relationships. Person X and Y are deeply involved in a romantic relationship. However, they are both as different as chalk and cheese. While X is outgoing and social, Y is more reserved, reticent, and selective when it comes to making friends. Y doesn't understand why X needs to spend so much time with friends. If X doesn't have a high emotional quotient, he or she will be prone to labeling Y as an insecure and overpossessive partner, thus creating conflict within the relationship. Y will get defensive in the face of X's accusations. However, if X is emotionally intelligent, he or she will be able to understand and empathize with Y. He or she will try to gather why Y feels the way he or she does. He or she will try to involve B more in their social outings and make Y feel an important part of the group. X will take constructive steps that will benefit both of them and work out a sort of understanding to reduce conflict. X will explain gently to Y about why he or she needs some time off with friends without arguing or blaming Y. There's a greater attempt to reach out to the other person and work out a middle ground that benefits everyone. In the above example, X may make more time for Y on weekends while partying with his or her friends on other days. X has simply utilized his knowledge and understanding of Y's emotions to work out a solution where everyone is happy and which allows both to enjoy a more meaningful and gratifying relationship. In the above scenario, A may keep aside some days exclusively for B while working out a way to go out with friends once a week so B doesn't feel neglected. This way, A has used his knowledge of B's emotions and feelings to empathize with her and arrive at a solution that makes them both feel better, which allows them to share a more meaningful and fulfilling relationship. Chapter 2. Proven Strategies for Boosting Self-Awareness and Managing Emotions. People with greater emotional self-awareness are aware about their feelings at any point in time. They can identify the exact source of these emotions and can also contemplate how these emotions will be manifested in physical forms, such as headaches, faster heartbeat, and sweaty palms. Now that you know what self-awareness is and how it can benefit you, wouldn't you want to know how to build greater self-awareness? The first step toward developing greater emotional intelligence is boosting self-awareness, or your understanding of your own feelings and emotions. You can regulate your emotions for an optimally positive outcome only when you are able to identify these emotions. Labeling emotions and then determining your actions based on the emotions is critical to the process of developing emotional intelligence. When you are more aware of your feelings and emotions, recognizing other people's emotions becomes simpler. Here are solid proven tips for boosting self-awareness to get you started on the path of emotional intelligence. Be an authority on yourself. What is the first step when you aim to bring about changes in your thoughts, actions, and behavior? Awareness about these thoughts and subsequent actions. To make changes, you ought to know what you have to improve upon. Knowing yourself inside out is the key to being more emotionally aware and savvy. Did you know athletes are trained to identify and overcome feelings before an important upcoming game? This is based on the premise that if you can successfully identify and control your emotions, it doesn't impact your productivity. Go back and think about all the recent instances where you let emotions get the better of you and affect your productivity. Haven't you let trivial matters impact your performance? When you are aware of your strengths and weaknesses, it is easier to confidently accomplish your objectives. There is a lesser scope for frustration, unproductivity, and disappointment. Self-confidence increases your assertiveness while expressing thoughts and opinions, which is important for developing social skills. When you gain greater self-awareness, you will rarely be ruled by emotions. You will have a clear edge if you are able to regulate your emotions. An emotionally aware person stops being a victim of his emotions and in fact uses these emotions in a positive way to accomplish the desired outcome. Spend time recognizing areas of development to strengthen them. List all your strengths and weaknesses. Take a formal psychological personality assessment test that helps you discover your own skills, abilities, limitations, and values. Obtain objective feedback from people you trust. One way that works wonders for increasing your self-awareness is journaling. Write in a flowing stream of consciousness about the thoughts you're feeling and experiencing as they are occurring. What are the emotions you are experiencing? What are the physiological reactions to your feelings? Are you experiencing a faster heartbeat, sweaty palms, increased pulse, etc. as a physical reaction to your emotions? Emotions aren't exactly straightforward. In fact, they are complex and multi-layered. For example, you may have a heated argument with your partner and feel angry, hurt, upset, vengeful, all at the same time. Write emotions exactly as you are experiencing them, even if two emotions appear to contradict each other. For instance, if you've got a scholarship to study overseas, you may be elated at the opportunity. However, the thought of leaving behind your partner may cause tinges of sadness too. You are acknowledging and validating your emotions by writing them. Dexter Vallis, the CEO of Valmar International, suggests maintaining a whiteboard divided into 2 or 3 parts throughout the day. Add 6 to 8 feelings to the board and ask employees to tick against the feelings they experience at different points during the day. Determine which emotions have the maximum check marks. Make a list of every role you play in your daily life, such as a parent, sibling, volunteer, worker, and more. What are the emotions liked with each role? For example, you may enjoy your role as a parent, but may be an unhappy employee. Examine every role and the emotions attached to it carefully. Naming emotions linked to everyday relationships will help you maintain emotions within that relationship more efficiently. It will help you in greater control in your emotional reaction where the specific role is concerned. 2. Do a periodic mental check-in. It's like the guest services/housekeeping staff knocking on your room and checking in if you need something all the time. You do a mental check by peeping into your mind throughout the day to understand if it's doing fine or needs something. Set aside some time each day to take a stock of your feelings. You can simply answer questions such as, how are you feeling at that particular moment? What is the source of those feelings? What are the physical symptoms of these feelings? Are you experiencing tensed shoulders, clenched teeth, fear, joy, excitement, sadness, euphoria? Do your feelings or emotions flow quickly after one another? Are your feelings accompanied by marked physical sensations, especially in the chest and stomach? Are emotions such as anger, sadness, happiness, and fear evident through your facial expressions? Are your feelings intense enough to grab the attention of others? Do your emotions determine your decisions? If these experiences do not ring a bell with you, your emotions may most likely be tuned off. To be emotionally balanced and intelligent, you must be able to reconnect with your fundamental emotions, acknowledge them, accept these emotions, and befriend them. Chapter 3. Name your emotions. Label and categorize your emotions. I know this makes your feelings sound like they belong to a library. However, labeling or giving names to your emotions makes it easier to identify and act upon them. When you feel an emotion surging through you, attempt to identify it quickly. Is it fear, insecurity, jealousy, anger, elation, depression, surprise, or a combination of these emotions? Identify the triggers that cause these emotions. For instance, a specific person may evoke jealousy in you because you feel they are more successful than you. What leads to your feeling certain emotions? What are the triggers that anger or hurt you? What makes you happy and sad? What is the source of positive and destructive emotions in you? Labeling your feelings and recognizing the stimuli for various emotions will increase your emotional self-awareness. Grab a pen and paper to list your emotions when you experience a compelling feeling. Mention the precise emotion or feeling you are experiencing. Accompany this emotional label with the trigger that caused it. What is leading you to feel the way you do? When you recognize an emotion, it is easier to manage it. For instance, let us assume you feel a deep sense of loathing for a person without any specific reason. You dislike them and can't stand them, but funnily, you can't tell why you dislike them. On closer examination of your feelings, you realize you dislike them because you are envious of them. You may believe they are always having a wonderful life, while things never go your way. When you are able to nail this emotion as jealousy, you are more equipped to regulate your potentially negative emotions. Once you recognize the emotion as irrational jealousy, you will view it in a more logical and understanding manner. You'll begin to think along the lines that it isn't really someone's fault that they lead an amazing life. In fact, they should be applauded for working hard toward their goals. You'll realize that no one has a perfect life. Everyone goes through shares of trials and tribulations to attain success, which isn't necessarily visible to the outside world. Sometimes it is only how we perceive things and not the reality. Thus, once you are more mindful of your emotions, you can work with them more positively. 4. Mindfulness. Tune into what your feelings and emotions are trying to convey to you during any moment. Develop a connection with your inner self or intuition to know what it's telling you about how you are feeling. When you listen to your deepest feelings, you gain invaluable insights about your emotional experiences, which guide you in handling several problems and issues. Staying in the moment is one of the best ways for recognizing emotions as they happen. Get rid of the habit of rehashing or replaying past stressful situations in your mind. If the problem isn't resolved yet, try coming up with out-of-the-box solutions at present rather than spending energy focusing on where you went wrong in the past. Shift the focus from what you can't control to what you can. Practice meditation and deep breathing to improve self-awareness and emotional intelligence. Meditation helps in calming your thoughts or taming your mind. It helps you develop greater awareness about your thoughts. Taking a few deep breaths helps your brain collect a fresh supply of oxygen, which can award more clarity to your thinking and make you feel less stressed. Emotionally intelligent folks spend plenty of time building self-awareness. They meditate or reflect upon their actions daily. Devote some time from your busy schedule to meditation and reflection, which will ultimately help you connect with yourself and build greater self-awareness. Head to any quiet corner within your home or office and spend time on any activity that gets you in touch with your deeper inner self. Try doing this simple deep breathing exercise. Breathe in at the count of 1, and then breathe out at the count of 1. Slower the pace a bit by breathing in at the count of 1, 2, then breathe out at the count of 1, 2. Make the pace even more relaxed by breathing in at the count of 1, 3, followed by breathing out at the count of 1, 3. Finally, count from 1, 4 while breathing in and 1, 4 while breathing out. Repeat the sequence as many times as you're comfortable with. Rest your hands on your chest or stomach to experience the rising and falling of every breath. Mindfulness is a fundamentally Buddhist practice about channelizing all your attention on the present without judgment. While the roots of mindfulness can be traced back to Buddhism, almost every religion practices mindfulness through prayer or meditation. It is all about appreciating the present moment without diving into the past or future. It is about developing a more calm and focused mindset that helps you make decisions with greater clarity. It is about carefully tuning in to every physical or emotional sensation and gaining a bigger life perspective. Mindfulness can bring about a deep sense of calmness, which can help you identify your feelings objectively and subsequently manage them. It helps you stay completely in the moment, in a non-judgmental manner, to get a better grip of your emotions before you are tempted to react to it. It can be practiced just about anywhere, and not just during meditation. For instance, you can practice mindful eating or mindful walking. Watch your emotions while eating or taking a long walk alone. 5. Get feedback. You can solicit honest views from family, friends, and trusted associates by clearing the ground at the outset by saying something like, "I am seeking your opinion as a friend. However, be honest about this with me since I need a genuinely unbiased perspective, all right?" Another brilliant strategy is to get friends to call out when they see you doing something which you genuinely want to give up. For instance, I like to hijack every conversation like you are aware by now. Please do me a small favor and let me know gently each time I try to do that, discreetly if possible. They will gently nudge you to stop when you do something you want to change about yourself. You must also seek an unbiased feedback at work. Use formal channels to get your supervisors and managers to offer you a formal and constructive feedback. It will allow you to dive into your strengths and weaknesses to increase your emotional intelligence and social adaptability. Seek a 360-degree feedback that offers you an unbiased opinion across several competency areas. The journey of self-awareness is a never-ending one. It is an evolving process that seeks to help gain complete congruence or consistency in the way to speak, think, and act. You can never really be done with being self-aware. However, the above-mentioned techniques will help you take the highway or fast track to self-awareness. Be receptive to feedback and constructive criticism. One of the best ways to develop greater awareness of your emotions is to be more open to feedback and criticism from others. For instance, a friend may tell you that each time he or she talks about his or her accomplishments, he or she senses your pangs of envy or dislike toward him or her. This may help you tune into your emotions and emotional triggers more effectively. Emotionally intelligent folks are open to receiving feedback and considering the other person's point of view. You may not necessarily agree with them, but listening to other people's criticism and feedback helps you work on your blind spots. This can help you recognize your thoughts, triggers, and behavior patterns. I know a person who, in a bid to increase his self-awareness and emotional quotient, actively goes around asking people for feedback about his words, feelings as they understand it, and actions. It acts as an emotion meter, which helps him gain greater awareness of his emotions and regulate them more efficiently. 6. Use third person. Research in the field of labeling our emotions has indicated that when we distance ourselves from our emotions or view them more objectively, we gain higher self-awareness. Next time you feel the urge is so, I am disappointed, say, Jack is disappointed. If that sounds too preposterous, try saying, I am presently experiencing sadness, or one of my feelings at the moment is sadness. These are techniques which you are distancing yourself from overpowering emotions to stay naturally composed. You are basically treating your emotions as just another piece of information rather than being overwhelmed by them. Each time you find yourself experiencing an urge to react to a situation, take a moment to name it. Then use it in third person to distance yourself from intense emotions. 7. Do not attempt to fix emotions. You don't always have to identify emotions with the intention of fixing them. Self-awareness is not about fixing emotions. It is to recognize these emotions and allow them to pass rather than helping them to get the better of you. Society has conditioned us to think of certain emotions as bad. We mistakenly believe that experiencing these emotions makes us a bad person. Far from it. Emotions aren't good or bad. They're just that, emotions. There's no need to push away the seemingly bad emotions. Acknowledge that you are experiencing an emotion by saying something like, I'm experiencing jealousy. Practice deep breathing for a while until the emotion passes. Rather than pushing the emotion away and in the process increasing its intensity to come back even stronger, gently acknowledge and let it live its time before passing away. It takes about 6 seconds for the body to absorb emotionally related chemicals. Give your body that much time. We often share a hostile relationship with our emotions. They are believed to be something that is negative and should be fought or suppressed. However, emotions are information that help us function in our daily lives. Overcome the mindset that emotions are good or bad, and instead focus on using them to empower you. Rather than letting emotions take control of you, use emotional information to work with them. Emotions are neural hormones that are released as a direct response to our perceptions regarding the world. They direct us toward a specific action. All emotions have a distinct message and objective, which means there's nothing like a good or bad emotion. For example, fear helps us focus on an impending danger and take the necessary action to defend ourselves. Similarly, sadness makes us experience a sense of loss and facilitates a better understanding of what we truly care about. If you move away from your best friend and become sad, you truly care about him or her to experience sadness on moving away from him or her. This is valuable information. Hence, sadness is not a bad emotion. It can be used to identify what you care about. If you use emotions as information for recognizing feelings, they can be channelized positively. The number one rule for developing higher emotional intelligence is to stop judging and curbing your emotions. 8. Recognize emotions based on physiological reactions. Our emotions are often experienced within the physical body. For example, you may feel anxious before a job interview or important presentation. There may be butterflies in your stomach before addressing an audience on the stage. Don't you find your heart pounding with excitement when you are about to go on a date with someone you've fancied for long? Nervousness leaves us with sweaty palms and stiff muscles. While these are only some of the physiological reactions we experience, research has proven that a variety of emotions are strongly associated with activating certain parts within the body. Regular patterns of physical sensations are linked with each of the 6 fundamental emotions, including fear, happiness, anger, sadness, disgust, and surprise. Human emotions discretely overlap physiological sensations. For example, reduced limb sensations are associated with sadness. Similarly, increased upper limb sensations are connected with anger. The strong feeling of disgust generates sensations within the throat and digestive system. Fear and surprise generate sensations within the chest. 9. Pin down recurring patterns. This can be one of the most effective parts of knowing yourself. Neuroscience will help you understand the process more effectively. Our brains have an inherent tendency to follow established neural paths rather than creating new ones. This doesn't necessarily mean that the established patterns are serving us positively, or that they can be altered. For instance, when a person becomes angry, he or she may bottle up their emotions rather than expressing them. This has become an emotional pattern with the person and is deeply embedded into the mind. However, awareness of this pattern can help the person chart another path of action, where the person practices responding instead of simply reacting to the emotion. However, the first step to charting a new pattern is identifying a pattern. Recognize the buildup of emotions before something suddenly triggers you. These triggers have a predictable pattern. If you are already frustrated, you are likelier to see a situation in a more negative light. Similarly, if you are overcome by fear, you are likelier to interpret a stimulus as threat. It is therefore important to be aware of these biases and how they can impact our emotions by creating a predictable pattern. The more efficient you become in recognizing your biases, the lower your chances of misinterpreting a stimulus. 10. Work with available information on emotions. Emotions are important pieces of data that help you gauge things from a clearer and objective perspective. When you suppress it, ignore it, fight, or feel overwhelmed by it, we build a valuable library of emotions. The purpose of emotional awareness is to concentrate our attention on these emotions and use them positively to create the desired outcome, not to curb them. Treat your emotions as data that relies on your view about the world and how to act. When you open yourself to this data, you will enjoy access to a huge resource of emotions that can be utilized to drive your actions in the right direction. You will know exactly how to reach where you want to go if you have a clear emotional route map. Therefore, acknowledge and recognize your emotions as data and work with it rather than trying to beat it. Begin by carefully noticing how you feel at the moment. Observe emotions without judging them or attempting to fix them. Learn to simply notice your emotions. Chapter 3. Tuning in to other people's emotions with powerful verbal and nonverbal clues for boosting emotional intelligence. When you are able to tune into other people's emotions or empathize with how they feel, there is higher chance of responding appropriately to create the desired positive result. Thus, our ability to connect with our and other people's emotions can be a powerful tool in social and leadership situations. Understanding other people, helping overcome stress situations, motivating your team, negotiating business deals, and building a close-knit social circle becomes easier when you are able to leverage emotional information available about people. It increases situational awareness and our ability to read people, thus helping us make the most positive decision. Here are some verbal and nonverbal factors impacting social emotional quotient or our ability to read and deal with people. Body language. Research reveals that body language accounts for 50% of our communication. You'd wonder why there were words in the first place, with body language accounting for half of our communication process. Tuning into a person's body language will help you pick up important signals related to their emotional state and subconscious thoughts and feelings. Here's a quick cue sheet to reading people's feelings through their body language. 1. Crossed arms and legs are signals of people creating a subconscious barrier. They are emotionally closed, suspicious, or do not subscribe to your ideas. They aren't open to listening to your views or are disinterested in the topic of conversation. You may have to emotionally open the person up a bit by changing the topic and then get back to the original topic. The physical act of uncrossing their arms and legs will make them more subconsciously receptive to your ideas. 2. How can you tell a genuine smile from a fake one? Simple. It's all in the eyes. Observe if there's crinkled skin near the person's eyes, forming crow's feet. People often present a happy expression to hide their true feelings. However, if their smile doesn't cause the skin around their eyes and mouth to crinkle, they are most likely not as happy as they are pretending to be. Artificial smiles create wrinkles only around the mouth, while genuine smiles create wrinkles around the sides of the eyes. 3. When people constantly take their gaze away from you while speaking, they are most likely not being very honest or trying to hide something. Similarly, if a person speaks to you without taking their gaze away from you for long, they may be trying to threaten or intimidate you with their gaze. It is all right to look away periodically. However, shifting gaze constantly is a red flag. 4. When you are addressing a group of people, closely observe the ones who are nodding excessively or in a more exaggerated manner. These are the people who are most concerned about your approval. They are anxious about making a positive impression, and be keen in your good books. 5. People who are nervous or anxious tend to fidget with their hands or objects. Other signs of nervousness also include excessive blinking, tapping feet, and constantly running one's hand over the face. 6. When an entire group walks into the room, how do you analyze who the leader or decision maker is? Quickly observe everyone's posture. The leader will most likely walk with a straight posture, with shoulders pulled out. Subconsciously, they are trying to occupy maximum space to convey authority over their team. Standing straight and pulling back shoulders increases a person's physical frame. It makes them come across as much bigger than they actually are, which is why people in power love to keep this posture, to reveal their influence over a group or place. 7. Expressions are windows of a person's emotional state. When a person is amazed or surprised, their eyebrows raise and the upper eyelids widen. Similarly, the mouth gapes open. Expressions can often overlap, so watch for micro-expressions that can reveal precise emotions. For instance, raised eyebrows can also reveal fear. Look for other micro-expression clues to determine the exact emotion. If a person is experiencing fear, the eyebrows will be raised and pulled together with tensed lower eyelids, while the two corners of their lips will appear stretched. Similarly, surprise will be expressed by eyebrows pulled up and a lowered jaw. Learn to read the entire face, especially micro-expressions, if you want to learn more about how a person is feeling. Since micro-expressions occur in a fraction of seconds, they are virtually impossible to fake. For instance, notice how when people are being deceptive, their mouths will assume a slanting position. Similarly, their eye movements become more rapid, the nostrils flare slightly, and they purse their lips together, a subconscious gesture signaling their lips are sealed or they won't reveal the truth. Since these split expressions are so subconscious-driven or involuntary, it is almost impossible to manipulate them. Enlarged pupils reveal intense emotions such as excitement, elation, delight, surprise, and interest. When a person is attracted to you or truly delighted to see you, their pupils will involuntarily enlarge. 8. The direction of a person's feet can also determine what's going on in their mind. Since feet aren't the first thing on anyone's mind, it's harder to manipulate body language related to legs and feet. If a person's feet are pointing away from you, they are subconsciously signaling their need to escape. However, if the feet are pointed towards you, they are interested or in agreement with what you are saying. 9. Typical signs of frustration and stress are clenched jaws, wrinkled eyebrows, and tensed neck. The person's words notwithstanding, if you observe any of these signs, he or she may be undergoing a stressful situation that they are trying to conceal. The trick for reading people's emotions accurately is to keep an eye out for a clear mismatch between verbal and nonverbal cues. 10. Observe a person's walk to tune into their feelings. People with a heavier gait along with low gravity while moving their legs are most likely hurt, stressed, frustrated, or depressed. People who walk with a slower and more relaxed pace are reflecting upon something. Notice how confident, happy, and goal-oriented people walk swiftly in one direction. 11. Observing a person's eye movements is a near-accurate way of gauging how he or she is feeling, since our eye movements are connected to precise brain functions. Our eye movements have an established pattern depending on the brain function or type of information we're trying to access. For example, when a person is caught in an internal conflict or dilemma, to speak the truth or lie, they are likelier to look in the direction of their left collarbone. Darting eyes laterally from one side to another can be a deception red flag. 12. Proxemics is a subtopic within body language that talks about how people reveal their feelings and emotions during the physical distance they maintain with other people during the process of face-to-face interaction or communication. It is a powerful nonverbal signal for understanding a person's thought process or state of mind. Psychologists and body language experts believe that the amount of physical distance we maintain while interacting with a person helps establish the dynamics of our relationship with them or reveals our emotions about them. A person who isn't standing very close to you may not be emotionally open or receptive to you. They may have a tendency to closely guard their emotions or give only a little bit of themselves to the interaction. Such people may be more emotionally guarded and closed. You may need to make extra effort to get them to drop their guard and feel less intimidated. It may be a defense mechanism against our being emotionally hurt or vulnerable. On the other hand, if a person is leaning in your direction, they may subconsciously convey being emotionally open or trusting you with their feelings. They may also be more interested in what you are speaking about. Tone. The tone, volume, pitch, and emphasis of a person's voice can help you decode a lot about how they are feeling. For example, if you notice plenty of inconsistencies in the tone of their voice while speaking, they are probably very angry, hurt, excited, or nervous. Ever notice how your voice shakes when you speak in a rage or are nervous about something? It can also be a sign the person is lying. Similarly, if a person is speaking louder or softer than their regular volume, something may be amiss. Again, a person's tone is a dead giveaway. Sometimes people say something that sounds like a compliment. However, on examining their tone closely, you realize the sarcasm and feelings with which it was uttered. The tone with which an individual completes their sentence says a lot about what they are trying to convey, even with similar verbal cues. For example, if a person completes their sentence on a raised note, they are doubtful of something, or innuring/asking a question. Similarly, if the finish the sentence is a flat tone, they are pronouncing a statement or judgment. Watch out for how people end their sentences to gather a clue into their inner feelings. Again, the words people emphasize on can help you uncover their true feelings. For example, if a person says, "Have you borrowed the blazer?" while emphasizing on borrowed, it indicates their doubt over whether you have borrowed, stolen, or done something else to the blazer. However, if the emphasis is on you, they aren't sure if it is you or someone else who has borrowed the blazer. I also like to look at pauses between phrases to know about the person's attitude, emotions, and intentions. For example, if a person pauses after saying something, it may be just that what was said was extremely important to them, or that they truly believe in it. Sometimes a person pauses to seek validation or feedback from others. The speaker wants to gauge your reaction to what they said since it is important for them. When people are in a more emotionally unstable or negative frame of mind, angry, hurt, or upset, their voice tends to be more high-pitched or squeaky. They may be most likely losing a grip of their emotions or aren't able to regulate their emotions effectively. Notice how when people are very angry, their voice becomes more screechy and squeaky, as if they're about to cry. Speed speech. A person's emotions clearly impact the speed of their speech. Notice how you start talking faster than your normal rate of speech or words per minute when you are angry or upset. A rapid speech can convey lack of organization, uncertainty, or lack of clarity. The person is not very comfortable about speaking and is just trying to finish throwing his or her words. Again, a slower than usual pace translates into low self-confidence, inability to express emotions, inability to come to terms with one's emotions, and lack of emotional reassurance and other similar feelings. Verbal cues. A person's choice of words can say a lot about what they are thinking and feeling. Words are symbolic of our thoughts and feelings, which when combined with nonverbal clues, give us a comprehensive understanding of their emotional state. The human brain is a miracle, really. When we think or process rational and logical thoughts, we tend to use nouns and verbs. Conversely, when we attempt to express our thoughts or feelings in a verbal or written format, there's a tendency to use more adverbs and adjectives. Any basic sentence features a subject and a verb. For example, I walked. When a person adds more words to it, they can indicate his or her feelings or personality. For example, I walked fast can indicate a sense of urgency, fear, or insecurity. There are clear reasons why people use specific words over others. Similarly, there's a hidden meaning behind what people say. Through their choice of words, people reveal emotions left unsaid. Let's say you book a table to take your family out for dinner at one of the fanciest dining establishments recently opened in your neighborhood. The server greets you courteously and directs you to your table. What follows is an amazing dining experience. The waiter introduces each of the 7 courses in an informative yet engaging style while you enjoy wining and dining in an upscale ambiance. After you enjoy a hearty meal and call for the tab, the waiter inquires if you enjoyed the food. You reply with, "The entrees were good." The waiter doesn't look very delighted, though this appears to be a compliment on the face of it. These 4 words reveal your real opinion about the food. It implies that other than the entrees, everything else was pretty average, or the only thing that stood out during the entire meal were the entrees. Did you actually say everything else other than the entrees were average? No. Then why did the waiter look crestfallen at your statement? It is obvious. People convey a lot not only through what they say, but also through what they left unsaid. Gather the hidden meaning or subtext behind what people say to tune in to their inner feelings. Notice how people sometimes will say, "You are looking lovely today." It can either mean you don't look plain every day, which is a more passive-aggressive kind of statement, or you are looking exceptionally good today compared to the other days. Another powerful clue about what people are thinking or feeling is noticing how they talk about other people. In a research published by the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, helmed by Peter Harms and Simone Vazir of the University of Nebraska and University of St. Louis, respectively, it was discovered that merely asking participants to rate positive and negative traits of 3 people revealed a lot about the participants' social competence, general well-being, and other people's perception of them and their mental health. It was observed that an individual's inclination to view other people in a positive manner was a strong indication of their own positive emotions. There is a strong link between seeing others in a more positive light and being emotionally stable, happy, productive, and enthusiastic. On the other hand, viewing others in a negative light bears a strong correlation with a general sense of dissatisfaction, low self-esteem, antisocial behavior, and narcissism. People who hold plenty of negative emotions tend to perceive other people in a poorer or more negative light. This can also be an indication of emotional issues, mental health conditions, or a personality disorder. Again, emotions aren't good or bad, but a reflection of how you are feeling. If a person experiences more negative emotions for others around him or her, it can be a powerful clue to his or her emotions about himself or herself. If a person says that they made up their mind after plenty of deliberation, the phrase indicates a mindset that is high on logic and rational thinking. The individual may be more contemplative and practical by nature. He or she may consider all the available options before making a decision. These are not your likely contenders for snap-of-the-moment decisions. Do you know what meta-language is? It is the intended words behind the words you speak. You don't say something directly, but reveal it through the words you use. For example, notice how when people want to get someone to agree to what they've said, they'll always end with yes, done, or okay, followed by a question mark in the end. Like, I can't put in the project today, I'll submit it tomorrow, okay? It's like manipulating the other person to agree. To make your social emotional quotient even more powerful and impactful, pay attention to the sounds people utter other than coherent words. Moaning, grunting, sighing, etc. can reveal a lot. Sometimes these sounds will complement the words the speaker is using to make the message even more persuasive. However, at other times, there may be a mismatch between the person's words and sounds. For example, someone may say, "I'm having a really good day," followed by a sigh, which can indicate they are simply being sarcastic and are in fact having a bad day. The reading becomes more effective when you combine words and other miscellaneous speech sounds. Environmental clues. A person's immediate environment says a lot about their emotional state. For instance, a messy, unclean, or disorganized space can indicate lack of clarity of emotions or thoughts. Of course, everything has to be analyzed within a context. Someone may have an unkempt house because he or she is too busy to tidy it up and doesn't have housekeeping help. All of us have certain spaces around us that are inaccessible that we don't really bother cleaning or organizing, space behind the cupboard or under the bed. These are spaces that we wouldn't normally clean. If such spaces are immaculately clean or organized, it can indicate anxiety or a disorder, obsessive-compulsive disorder. Well-organized and clean spaces can indicate clarity of emotions or control over one's emotions. The person tends to be more reflective and introverted by nature. Similarly, people who are outwardly focused or extroverts tend to be surrounded by chaos. This isn't pop psychology, but based on clear principles of how the environment around us is created through our actions, which is directed by our subconscious thoughts and emotions. For example, using bright, vibrant, and bold prints in your decor or attire can be a sign of confidence, emotional self-assurance, and independence of thought and opinion. Likewise, a home with brighter and more vibrant colors is an indication of a sign of being bold, emotionally expressive, and outgoing. These people are not afraid to take risks and are more tuned to the needs and feelings of other people. More subtle colors imply inward-directed emotions or an introverted personality. They may not be too clued in to other people's feelings or emotions. People who hold on to old objects or hoard can be excessively emotional, sensitive, or sentimental. They find it tough to move beyond past emotions or are still ridden by feelings of shame, regret, or guilt related to the past. These are people who latch on to old memories and are unable to release self-limiting emotions that hold us back. When you use these verbal and nonverbal principles for understanding people, your social emotional quotient invariably increases. Conclusion. I hope you enjoyed reading this book and were able to learn various aspects of emotional intelligence from it. I also hope it offered you plenty of actionable strategies, practical ideas, and wisdom nuggets about growing your emotional quotient or emotional intelligence. The best part is, unlike intelligence quotient, emotional quotient can be built over a period of time through regular practice, efforts, and application. Improving your emotional intelligence is an evolving and dynamic process that only helps you get better. The next step is simply go out there and use all the proven tips mentioned in this book and record the results. Finally, if you enjoyed reading the book, take time out to share your feedback by writing a review on Amazon. It'd be highly appreciated. I want to share with you a free sneak peek to another one of my audiobooks that I think you will enjoy. The audiobook is called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. It will teach you how to recognize the link between your thoughts, feelings, and actions that allows you to disrupt the patterns and create positive outcomes. Are you ready to start taking control of your life and your relationships? With cognitive behavioral therapy, you can learn how to cope with different situations, understand the motivation and behavior of others, and develop confidence around your abilities. Even if you have no idea what psychology is, this book is the best long-term solution to bypass your bad feelings and improve your self-confidence. Become your own therapist. Enjoy. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy, CBT. Retraining your brain with these simple techniques for managing anger, anxiety, depression, panic, phobias, and intrusive thoughts. Introduction. Want to face your fears instead of avoiding them? Would you like to be more prepared for those potentially problematic interactions with others? Would it be useful if you could learn to calm your mind and relax your body, especially during times of increased stress? Maybe you're dealing with depression and anxiety, but instead of making the situation better, you're overthinking things and making them worse. All these situations can cause emotional upset and affect our thoughts and behaviors. Imagine if you could stop a negative thought in its place and turn it into something that makes you feel positive about the situations you're in. Cognitive behavioral therapy gives you the techniques you need to recognize and change potentially problematic thoughts and behaviors so you can develop your confidence around your abilities, cope with different situations, understand the motivation and behavior of others, and really reevaluate the way you think. Using the methods used in cognitive behavioral therapy, you can become more effective in your life by developing a strategy for handling thoughts and feelings as they arise. You can set realistic goals for yourself, easily identify situations by becoming your own therapist. In this guide, we'll break down what cognitive behavioral therapy is and the different methods for applying it to your life. By recognizing the link between your thoughts, feelings, and actions, you can disrupt the pattern and create positive outcomes. Use this information to set goals, track changes, and ultimately strengthen the relationship you have with yourself and others. Chapter 1. What is cognitive behavioral therapy? Behaviorism is how people learn, and cognition is the way we think about and interpret life events. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, combines those theories and includes a wide range of therapies that are based on the idea that our thoughts can cause behaviors and feelings. This means that by understanding your thought processes and recognizing where you should make changes can help you act and feel in more positive ways, even if situations stay the same. Emotional reactions can come from how we think about the things that happen. CBT can help you to become aware of and acknowledge that your assumptions about yourself are not necessarily based on facts. This can lead to profound changes in your life. Relationships can improve, interactions with others can be enjoyable, and you may find yourself excited for the future for the first time in a long while. We all have any number of emotional needs, such as our mind-body connection, intimacy, safety, and purpose. We need to have those emotional needs accepted and nurtured. There is even an often unconscious attempt to have these needs met somehow. There can be a negative impact on our lives and outlook if those emotions are not nurtured over an extended period of time. Human functioning is based on 4 basic factors: physiology, behaviors, thoughts, and emotions. Physiology. This is how your body functions. Think about major body systems such as circulatory, endocrine, nervous, etc. Behaviors. This is how you act towards others and in response to situations and stimuli. Behavior is observable. Thoughts. The actions or process of thinking, ideas, opinions, contemplations, remembering. We tend to relate a feeling to the thought. Emotions. Intuitive and instinctive feelings outside of knowledge or reasoning. Our natural state of mind that comes from our mood, relationships, and circumstances. All 4 of these factors are interconnected and heavily influence each other. For example, if you have a physiological issue such as an illness, it can greatly affect how you behave, what emotions you experience, and what thoughts dominate in your mind. Now imagine that you're living with a chronic illness. How might that affect your experience? Through therapy, one can learn different ways to turn around thoughts, perceptions, and assumptions to gain new insights and find more helpful emotions. A few of the core principles that CBT is based on include that psychological problems are partly based on learned patterns of behavior and on unhelpful ways of thinking. It also poses that those suffering from these problems can relieve their symptoms by learning better ways of coping and employing strategies to change thinking patterns. Negative thought patterns that can continue unchecked can potentially throw one into a downward spiral and eventually lead to mental disorders. Learning how to pull out of that tailspin is a prime objective of cognitive behavioral therapy. When reflecting on those basic emotional needs, it can be very helpful to ask yourself questions and gauge how they make you feel. Find questions that focus on attention, your involvement in your community, intimacy, mind-body connection, control, meaning, purpose, challenge, status. For example, how are you sleeping? How often are you meeting up with your friends? What involvement do you have with your community? Our thought processes are a critical role in how we feel and how we act. Changing unhelpful or harmful distortions, such as attitudes, thoughts, and beliefs, can develop coping strategies and regulation. Some of the ways cognitive distortions present themselves are with catastrophizing, overgeneralizing, minimizing positives, and magnifying negatives. For example, the question, "How are you sleeping?" could be answered honestly as, "I'm sleeping okay, but I don't usually get enough sleep." But one who catastrophizes things might feel, "I never get enough sleep," or "I'll never feel rested." It is easy to assume that everything is all in your head. Before assuming everything is mental, be sure to check your physiology. Our brain plays a very large role in our behavior, and our deep limbic system, which is at the center of our brains, controls the bonding we do and our moods. The steps listed above will help optimize the patterns of your brain to be more effective in everyday life. CBT is popular with people in part because it doesn't tell people how they should feel. Therapists typically have a specific agenda for each session. Setting goals for yourself is the first step. Think about the main reasons you want to enlist therapy. If you want to stop negative self-talk, are you dealing with depression and anxiety? Perhaps you need to work on relationship conflicts and find better ways of communication. Post-traumatic stress disorder caused by emotional traumas, dealing with violence or abuse, chronic illness, prevention of mental illness symptom relapse, manage emotions, cope with loss or grief, cope with stressful situations. CBT will focus on these goals and how you can get to be where you want to be. This can be as much of an unlearning as anything. Unwanted reactions can be traded for new ways of reacting. Long-term results can be achieved by understanding how and why you're doing well and how you will continue to do so. There's generally little risk involved outside of emotional discomfort. Exposure therapy may be required to confront certain situations you'd rather not think about. Anxiety and stress can appear during these sessions, but working with a trained therapist will help you realize that you can conquer negative fears and feelings and manage them. CBT has been proven effective for various mental illnesses outside of depression and anxiety disorders such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and eating disorders. Panic disorder, PTSD, OCD, phobias, sleep problems, and alcohol misuse. In some cases, the use of other treatments like antidepressants can make therapy the most effective. There are multiple phases involved in CBT. Most systems share both psychological assessment and reconceptualization techniques. Psychological assessment. Identifying critical behaviors. Are those behaviors deficits or excesses? Obtain a baseline for frequency, intensity, and or duration. Attempt to increase or decrease frequency based on findings. Reconceptualization. Skills acquisition. Skills consolidation and application training. Generalization and maintenance. Post-treatment assessment follow-up. Remember, the premise of CBT is that anxieties and depressive moods are driven by our thoughts. We must know what we are thinking to understand how we feel. Our interpretation of things is a crucial factor in figuring out what's contributing to these low moods. Cognitive behavioral therapy typically consists of a supportive relationship between you and a therapist. If you've never worked with a therapist before, you might feel overwhelmed and or intimidated at the thought of contacting one. Being able to express yourself, be vulnerable, and explore your inner issues can be life-changing. It's like ripping off a bandage. You must do it. There are so many different options, and it's recommended that you do some research before deciding. Check out their educational history, how long they've been in practice, where they're located, etc. Are they state certified and properly licensed? Ask people close to you if they've ever tried therapy and if they might have someone in mind that you could reach out to. Be prepared to see more than one therapist, as you might not hit it off with the first one you see. You must feel that you can trust them and that they are respectful and kind towards you. You can always conduct a phone interview to get a sense of the therapist. Many professionals will offer a 15-minute phone consultation to determine if it's a good fit. You may be employed by a company that offers an employee assistance program, which can be extremely helpful when finding a qualified therapist. You could also perform a search for local or state psychologists or ask for a referral from your primary care physician. Find a therapist that matches the type of therapy you need and will give you the level of intensity you're comfortable with. You can have a one-on-one or even participate in group sessions. At first, you'll learn about what techniques you can employ to help alleviate some of the symptoms you're experiencing: coping, relaxation, managing stress, assertiveness, and resilience, to name a few. You may be assigned homework that could include activities, reading, or other activities that build upon your therapy sessions. Keep in mind that CBT is typically time-limited, making this form of therapy one of the quickest in terms of results. Other forms of therapies can take years before one feels any benefit. CBT typically has a clearly defined set of goals and a strategy to get you where you'd like to be within 20 sessions. The main goal of CBT is creating change through thinking differently and acting on that learning. If a therapist is unrealistic for you due to access, or if you're not comfortable finding someone you can share things with, rest assured that you can apply principles of cognitive behavioral therapy to your life yourself. Therapists can be very expensive, even with insurance, and there are many people that simply cannot afford the time or money that therapy requires. If you can't work with a therapist, there are multiple self-help books, audio-video presentations, and home training programs that will help teach you where to begin and how to follow through on making positive changes in your life. There is no substitute for a therapist, but we all deserve ways to manage when we are struggling. You can develop a self-care program to take your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual needs without the need for professional help. Self-care can simply mean that you sleep when you're tired, eat until you're satisfied, make time to move your body, and allowing yourself to really feel what you're going through. In the following pages, simply modify the information to fit a self-help model when directions regarding therapists are mentioned. If you are interested in psychiatric medication, you need to consult a medical professional that has experience working with mental disorders. Taking medication for your anxiety or depression can help get your life back to normal, but if your symptoms are mild, you may find relief from counseling and lifestyle changes alone. While antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications can't make you forget your problems, they typically make it easier to deal with them. Taking medication for a mental disorder is not a cure-all, and you will need to put in the work to improve your thoughts and lifestyle. When performing self-analysis and realistically looking at your current state, ask yourself if you think medication will help you get through your day and make the positive changes you seek. Whether you're working on this independently or with a therapist and with or without medication, some of the things that you'll want to think about are: what situations or conditions in life are you finding troubling? You may want to spend some time thinking about what you'd like to focus on: anger, grief, medical conditions, etc. You want to make a note of the self-talk you have around these situations or thoughts. It can be helpful to keep a journal specifically to remember what you're processing and to review later or share with your therapist. Therapy is all about sharing your thoughts. Make note of your behavioral, emotional, and physical responses to these thoughts. Identify patterns and what could be contributed to the problem. With practice, you can start to identify where you may have an inaccurate perception of reality based on your thoughts. While CBT is not a cure-all, it can certainly help give the power to cope with situations in a healthy way, leaving you to feel better with yourself and your life. Tips to help your cognitive behavioral therapy work for you include: be honest and willing to talk. Your success is dependent upon your sharing your feelings and experiences. Reluctance is normal when being open with someone new. Let your therapist know how you're feeling so you can maintain an open relationship. Have realistic expectations. It can take multiple sessions before you notice an improvement. It can be hard to confront conflicts and work on emotional issues. Setting clear expectations with your therapist will help you set goals and measure progress. Put in the work. Apply what you're learning in therapy sessions by doing any homework assignments or activities you may be asked to complete. Following through on these tasks can help with motivation and overall success.